So I want to talk about this word deserve.
Yeah.
I didn't deserve that. How is this word really holding us back?
This idea that, this comes from this right-wrong dynamic. Like, this is what should happen and this is what shouldn't. And then also, anytime we deserve something, there's going to be a different environment where we don't deserve it. And it just pendulums with this made-up understanding of who we think we are and what we think we deserve. I think it's limiting.
I love that. If you feel like you deserve something, that means you feel like you don't. You have to have both then.
Yeah. And I think people unintentionally use this, like, you deserve that or you deserve this. But if it has anything to do with our deservability, then we're going to try to earn our worth. We're going to try to prove something, and that's just inauthentic. And so it's like, you didn't deserve that. Well, I understand the deeper intention, but I think the words are important. And so realizing we are all inherently whole, all inherently worthy. From there, then it's not about deserving or not deserving. It's about being willing to say, this is what was presented to me in life, and what can I use it to teach me? What is life showing me or assisting me to see through this? Because then we have an empowered point of view rather than thinking, I'm trying to manipulate life, or it's their problem or their fault, pointing fingers outside. But the real work is the inside. So again, I just flip the frame, because this idea that you deserve it is too limiting. The truth of who you are, there's no definition the mind could put on us that would capture who we really are.
Hi, I'm Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. I am so excited for today's episode because it is with one of my close friends who I have known for many, many years, shared many, many life experiences with, and she has been meant to be on this podcast for a long time now, but there was always just, tides in the ocean until right now when the ocean crescendoed, and here we are. Because she's so well-versed in so many different topics, but this topic especially about looking at our subconscious and questioning our beliefs, it has been such a huge part of my life and my journey, not just through discovering my soul's purpose and dharma and creating my business, but also now having just gotten divorced and navigating the relationship challenges that, that come up in these types of situations, and then really looking at what do I want to create moving forward. And I've done enough work to know that our life is a reflection of our beliefs, because the truth is, if there's something in your life that's not how you want it to be, it's probably because there's a belief that it is meant to be like this. And until we dive into those questions and we excavate, we go into the subconscious mind, we're going to keep manifesting these different realities. And I feel that so often in the spiritual space, we talk about manifestation as this like abstract thing that these like aliens are doing for us, but it's actually us who is like actively choosing and co-creating it in these very tangible ways of like how we communicate with people, the choices that we make, the behaviors that we accept or don't accept. We're constantly manifesting in our lives just through our way of being. So for me, in my experience now, and past few months, I've dove in deeper into myself than I ever have in my entire life through so many modalities, from somatic experiencing, hypnotherapy, Watsu, rebirth. I mean, the list goes on, but it's like those little beliefs that I had, something so simple that's like, oh, like relationships are hard, or, well, no man can ever be as conscious as like what us women can be like, or, whatever the things are. And then it's just like, well, is that really true? And I've had Byron Katie on the podcast before, and we went through her process of doing the work, which Alyssa also has been a student of for many years, and she has her own system as well. And it's something that I always teach our Dharma Coaching Institute students to really like look at those little beliefs and like probe into them and question them, because then when they unravel, it's like, oh, no, that's actually not true at all. I've been holding on to that. Like, what? Like, I've been seeing the entire world in this way based on this shitty fucking belief that is not even true. Like, what? And then you're like, oh shit, I can have the juicy relationship. I can have the abundant business. I can have these things because they're already there. It's just my belief is blocking me from having them. So in this episode, we're going to dive into the subconscious, all of these things, and bring our own experiences to the table as well, because I feel like that's really how we grow. It's through learning other people's experiences. So without further ado, let's welcome Alyssa Nobriga to the Highest Self podcast. And also I want to include that Right now, she's a coach, but she spent many years as a therapist and working with individuals and couples. So what I love about Alyssa's approach is she really blends the like therapy, the psychology, and all of these different systems with the spirituality and the coaching. So, if you're someone that's like, I don't know, like I want the evidence or the science behind this, like she really marries the two. So you're gonna feel her energy and the safety that she creates instantly. You're gonna be like, yes, bitch, I love her. So let's welcome Alyssa on the Highest Self podcast.
What an introduction. Thank you.
So the first question I'd love to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
Questioning my identity.
Questioning away. That's what we're going to do today.
Self-inquiry. Yeah. Who am I?
Love that.
Yeah.
So I was at your house like last night or 2 nights ago, and we were diving deep into all of the realms. And you said something about how everyday triggers become the breadcrumbs to our awakening. And I was like, that is the topic of our podcast right there, because I feel that we have this idea of, well, once I become awakened, once I become enlightened, once I become spiritual, whatever the thing is, I won't have any triggers anymore. And that's not true. Yeah. And it's like, instead, really looking at these triggers as our pathway, as the breadcrumbs, like you said. So can you just explain a little bit more of what that means?
Yeah. I think of triggers are our teachers. So there's an approach to life to use everything that happens in our everyday for our freedom, for our awakening. So life always shows us where we're not free. And we can either proactively do our work to continue to free our hearts and our minds and live as a beneficial presence in the world, or we can postpone it and keep projecting it on other people. So obviously we're about the proactive approach, which is, what is life mirroring to me in this situation? And what are the thoughts? What are the feelings? What are the emotions? Holistic approach to getting free rather than just one area of it. And if I do that, then I get to the root of it so that I can live more free, essentially. So instead of thinking that person made me feel this way, instead, a different approach to looking at it is that person knocked on the door and our trigger opened. It was already within us and they evoked it. And so if that trigger gets opened, then we can look inside of ourselves. How do I look? What is that mirroring to me about myself? What is life mirroring to me about my belief systems? And if I get really still and I slow down to start to observe the mind rather than get absorbed by it, I can see what's playing out in my subconscious. So oftentimes the subconscious, we can't see what we can't see. So life needs to be that mirror for us. And rather than getting stuck on blame or thinking about people, look at the pattern. What is this reflecting to me? How do I use this to clear it within inside of myself so that I don't keep playing it out unconsciously in the world?
I love how you just worded that, because it's so relatable. When these triggers show up, it's really God, universe, source consciousness, just trying to support us in seeing these things that we would have never, you can't know what's inside you until it's reflected back into your outer reality.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the spiritual path of like, whatever is the obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
It's not preventing, I can't be happy because of this. It's like, oh, this is the actual thing that's like my key code.
It's not in the way. It is the way.
It is the way.
And by having the courage to face it, to embrace it, ironically, it holds the key to what we deeply desire. But oftentimes we don't want to look at it. So I call this the paradox of transformation, that through embracing the thing we're afraid of, we ironically experience what we deeply desired. So for example, if I want to feel secure, it's through embracing insecurity. If I want to feel free, ironically, it's through embracing feeling stuck. Or if I want to feel more worthy, I embrace unworthiness, the part of me that feels unworthy, holding presence. And I think it's important to know that it's not getting caught up in the identity or the story. Once the story is told, it can activate the emotions or the sensations. And then once the sensations or emotions are activated, then we can get intimate with the current experience, getting directly intimate with what it's presenting as a sensation, not a story. And it starts to integrate into our nervous system. So rather than getting caught on the person, we find out what's the pattern it's reflecting. Rather than get caught on the story, what's the sensation that's arising in my body right now? And if I breathe into it, it starts to integrate into my nervous system. Because neuroscientists have found it only takes 90 seconds to feel a sensation before it moves through the body. And so if we're telling ourselves a story on repeat, we're going to keep feeling those things. And then our identity comes from that. And then we limit ourselves in all these other ways, thinking I can only have this much, or we have these unconscious programs with our family to say, if we were raised with a family that says life is hard, then our life starts getting easier as we start doing the inner work. We may have an unconscious bond or a loyalty, like, oh, I won't feel accepted or safe or included or belong in my family system. So then we have to go a layer deeper to just get still and see what's playing out so that we no longer have to unconsciously live out of what we think is possible and live into a greater expansive reality.
Isn't it funny how they design it? It's like the thing that you really want most in life, you got to have the exact opposite of it. And in my own experience, I started writing my next book about joy about a year and a half ago, and it just wasn't coming through. Like I would write and I'm just like, this is too simple. It's too basic. Like there's got to be more to this. And normally when I write a book, I'm like in the channel and I'm like in relationship with the book and it's like merging through me. But this one was just, so I kind of just like would put it aside. And I learned I had to experience the deepest realms of grief to know joy.
That's right. That's right.
And God created, this experience for me to be like, what does a dark night of the soul look like? What does feeling just like pure darkness feel like? Because I did not know that thing before. And so I would love to hear your experience of like, what was your desire? And then what was the opposite that you experienced?
I think my core story and a big part of humanity's core story is I'm not good enough. I'm inadequate in some way. And so we have different ways to look for love, safety, attention, approval in the world. And one way that it's come up for me is through success. If I'm successful enough, then I won't feel this way. But ironically, every time I've been willing to stop and face and feel the very thing that I've run away from, it's given me the wholeness, the experience of beyond worthiness. There's like levels of worth in a frame that I use, which is I'm not good enough. I am good enough, both egoic, but both helpful. We want healthy, integrated egos. And then there's beyond worthy. So the idea of measuring our worth doesn't even comprehend in that state of consciousness. It's just beyond any idea of worthy. Like, how could you measure everything and what you are? So by ironically embracing the parts of me that didn't feel successful, didn't feel good enough, started to compare myself, by just stopping and being willing to face those things. And I'll just share a recent experience. So I was launching my coaching certification program, and I've done it for 3 years, and we weren't hitting the numbers that we typically hit. And the way I designed it is the first 3 days, I know how the launch is going to do. And I went straight to strategy. I was like, oh, I can change this and I can keep improving it. And that's great to be resilient and resourceful. But I was subtly avoiding just feeling disappointment, grief. I had put so much of my heart and soul into it, financially, energetically, all the things. And I let myself just stop and make peace with exactly where I was. I went into the feelings of not as a story, and it's really important to say this, it's like to feel it as a sensation with presence, started to integrate it, and I instantly felt free. I was no longer running away from those things. And every time I've done this, it's happened this way. But as I did that and I made peace with what I was knowing, and there's a part of me that I already knew, like everyone that's meant to be in this will be in this, and then my humanity was just caught. And so letting our essence embrace our ego and really feel what we've been avoiding helps us instantly open. And so I got to a place of peace with it, and I stopped tracking the numbers. And ironically, at the end of the launch, it ended up being the most successful launch that we have done. But that only started happening after I faced what I had been avoiding. And this is again and again and again. And it's there's gems hidden within all of it. And sometimes it's wrapped in skull paper and we don't want to go there, but who we become, or the capacity of our human experience, the range that we get to develop within ourselves. Because you're right, as we feel the hard stuff, it also opens more light. The dark is connected to the light. So there isn't even, it's just part of our full range experience. And I think sometimes people can try to manage and manipulate outside world so that they don't feel certain ways. But that creates a lot of anxiety because we can't control things outside of ourselves. And so the other way to really live is to stretch the capacity to be with our range and our human experience, letting our essence, the truth of our being, meet these parts of us that are scared or caught up in things happening a certain way and really allow them to be exactly as they are, that they don't need to be different. And as we embrace them, we start to feel our wholeness, our spiritual nature, our presence. And in that, that's a greater level of freedom,
And it's so true because it even happens in like micro ways and micro lessons in your life. Like I look back on my early 20s and what I wanted more than anything was to know my purpose, know my dharma, know who I am. So the situation that I was in was my parents very much trying to dictate the path that I am, because I needed to confront head on, what does it look like to not live your purpose or to give up your power for me to reclaim my own? And then even in relationship, I would say my biggest fear was being abandoned, like not being in relationship anymore. So I would do anything to stay in relationship except whatever the thing was. And I had to experience the end of my marriage to be like, oh, I actually am okay on my own. In fact, I'm even happier on my own. And when you're in those experiences, it feels like this is like the worst thing that could ever happen to me. It was like designed to be the worst thing that could ever happen to me, specifically based off of my fears. And it's like, and it was.
The death to the ego is a win to your soul. And as we really face life, knowing it's like everything that is presented, we can use for our freedom, we can use for our awakening. And as we do that, we don't have to try to manage and control, and we feel more surrendered as a result. It's like, can I be with this, whatever that this is in our current experience? And if we take it deeper into fully accepting it, ironically, we feel our wholeness, we feel our connection, and I think a lot of people in relationships, they may feel a sense of loneliness, for example, and then they look for a partner to fill them, but then they still feel lonely in partnership. And so the direct way to insource rather than outsource our needs is to be with this part of us that feels lonely, to breathe into it, to love it, to be with it, really embracing that ego. And as we do, it's like we not only feel our wholeness, but we radiate and we shine and we attract a different type of partner, because it's super attractive not to be needy, clingy, feeling like all the dynamics that we play out in partnership unconsciously. It's like, how can I be that for these parts of myself? And then a partnership gets to blossom however it wants to blossom without it putting all of our inner problems for the outer solution to fix it, which will never happen.
So for someone listening to this that they're like, well, I don't really know what's my big core desire, how can they understand what it is for them?
Their desire?
Yeah, like that thing that they really want in life, like whether it's the worthiness piece for you. Like, how did you come to understand that theme?
Yeah. Core wound for me was, okay, I like open-ended questions. So it's like, if I am whatever you're searching for. So I love the Enneagram. I think it's a beautiful map of the human psyche. It's not who we are, it's the psychology, right? So very important, ego versus essence. So our personality is really designed in these 9 types, and anybody can look into the Enneagram.
Can you just briefly tell us like the number and the type of
Sure. So the 1 is the perfectionist. They look for perfection in the world, but they also don't want to feel wrong. They try to be perfect. So the 1 is the perfectionist. The 2 is the helper. They're so easy to be around people, and yet sometimes their work is to identify what their needs are rather than just giving to others, having boundaries. Very like service profession type people. The 3 is the achiever. Unconsciously, and there's gifts in all of these too, and this is a whole map, so I'm just giving like the bite-sized piece of it and the shadow part of it so that we can identify the wound. The 3 is the achiever, and so unconsciously they think their worth is through what they achieve, what they do. So really detaching who they are from what they do is important work.
It's very pitta. And this is my second one, your first one, right?
Yeah. And the 4 is the individualists, and they're usually the creatives, the romantics, and sometimes they can wallow in the past, but they want to bring beauty out into the world. So they are like the soul deep divers, like they're willing to go into the dark night of the ego, right?
Because I feel like I've become this one. All I do is like cry and think about love all day now.
and so like there's beauty, right, in all of them, and then there's challenges in all of them. And then there's the 5, the investigator. These are more, think of like professors. They find their value in the world through what they know, through knowledge. The 6s are the loyalists, and these, they like routine, they like regular, they like structure, security, knowing, and yet they can worry a lot. So mindset work is really good for 6s. The 7s are the enthusiasts.
This one's mine.
Yes. That like so fun, high vibe, like just like the life of the party. And sometimes 7s can jump from one thing to another without real mastery and going deep into one.
Very Vata. I'm like, let's travel. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's go.
So fun. And then the 8 is the challengers, and they take on the big challenges of the world. And sometimes people cannot feel safe with them. And so they try to control and manage life outside of them so that they feel safe. But oftentimes they had really hard upbringings. And it can be direct. So not everybody likes that. Whereas the 9s are the peacemakers. These are the people that are hanging out in Bali all the time, finding peace, and they don't like conflict, and they haven't really fully explored their own anger. And they're very easygoing, but part of the work is for them to have a voice, have an opinion, and speak their truth. So all of them, again, have their gifts. And what I find is that typically the core wound can be easy to find what it is once you know your Enneagram type. And so my experience is that we're looking for safety and belonging and acceptance in the world through these 9 different types. We're looking for, it's almost like the ego is looking for what the soul already has the medicine for. So we're looking outside versus going into a deeper dimension of our being. And when we go into our being, we discover everything we thought would be through achieving success, joy out in the world. It's just within ourselves. And so I find that to be a really beautiful, succinct map to just navigate our own human psyche. And I think that can help people just have like a first fresh start.
Yeah. And I think looking at, because we have multiple of them, right? We have like our first one and then two wings. Is that how?
Yeah. So if I'm a 3, then I may have a 2 and a 4 on either side. And my wing, I'll lean more towards 1. But, it's like, it's like you speak different languages, but you have a core native tongue. So this is like if I'm a 3 or if you're a 7, then that's your main thing. And as you do more work, you become more evolved and you have less of the types. You have more of the gifts of all of them.
Yeah, because when I took the Enneagram quiz years ago, I was like very 7. And now I do feel like that is who I am. But now when you said some of the other ones, I'm like, oh, I definitely can see myself in that 4. I can see myself in the peacemaker one, and I think that's really what we're here to do. We're here to really tap into these different sides of ourselves.
Yeah. And what's important, because sometimes you take a test and it'll say you're compared to 3, top 3, you have to type your own personality. And again, it's our personality, not who we are. So I don't like labels in that sense, because then we can box ourselves in. And, as a 3, they say that 3s don't feel their emotions. Now, I would say that emotional mastery is one of my gifts.
And you're a Cancer. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And so just knowing that about ourselves and the motives for where we do something from is important to understand. So 8s can be successful and so can 3s, but 8s do it for power unconsciously and 3s do it through worth. So the come from is different. And so as people are taking the test, they can just find for themselves where is the come from for them. But so if I am afraid of feeling not worthy, or I feel too much or too little, or any of the stories, then the invitation is, as soon as life triggers that, to slow down, to get still, and to be with that part of me so that I can proactively learn to move through it and not get so triggered by life events and situations, or keep playing that out in partnership.
So good. So you have an embodied inquiry on beliefs, which I just love, because I feel we need to also bring in the body and the somatic element to these things, because we can just be like, oh, that's not true. And it's like, well, your body is still believing it. So what does your embodied inquiry look like?
I love the power of questions because it elicits our own truth and answers. We're not giving it to anyone. So if it's like, who am I? You could even use the Enneagram. Who am I when I'm not striving for success? Who am I when I'm not helping others? So asking ourselves questions so that we can pop out of the perceptual filters of who we think we take ourselves to be is a profound space to be in. But also bringing conscious awareness into the unconscious patterns that we play out. What do I do when I believe that thought? What do I fear would happen if I let go of that thought? Can sometimes highlight the subconscious story that's holding on. So we may know we need to do something, but we're not doing it. And so oftentimes can be a competing desire that gets created. So it's like, I want to be seen, I want to grow my business, but I'm scared of what people will think of me. So they are at war inside of themselves. And so rather than creating a strategy from this place, it's about looking at, how is this part of me that's scared trying to serve me? So we have a compassionate lens, because we can't change anything that we're identified with and we're judging. And so the opposite is true. If we accept it and we're not identified with it, we've got more space to let it move through. And so asking ourselves questions like, is this pattern new or familiar? And we feel it in our bodies. We can even tune into, even if everybody listening is like, find a contraction in our body right now, wherever it is. And Sahara, where do you find one right now in your body?
My shoulders.
Yeah. So if you bring your awareness, dropping it into your shoulders with just curiosity, not trying to change it or get rid of it, and breathe into it, allowing it to be here exactly as it is with infinite space. And just opening to the sensations that are here, everybody doing this while we're also doing it together. What do you notice as you breathe into and allow it to be here?
It just naturally dissolves.
That's right. And so that tells us that everything's looking to be met with presence. And oftentimes we can stay stuck in our head trying to change something, but we're further patterning and getting identified with it. And so you can also do some work if you want to go deeper into it. You can find a contraction in your body and you can feel into, is it the size of a golf ball or a grapefruit? Is it inside the body, outside the body? And it's good, especially for busy minds, to start asking more questions to get a vision of it. But as soon as you have the visual of it, you want to drop that because that's one further removed from the direct experience of it. And so as you know, you can play with it. It's like, oh, it's in my heart. And when was the first time I felt this way? Just asking powerful questions. And then an image or a memory comes up. Follow whatever is arising in the moment. There's intelligence in that. But if there's nothing there, you don't have to dig. And the shortcut is just to embrace it. And there's going to be different parts of us that we get to ham up that want full expression. So we know being a victim is not ideal. And yet we can play out unconsciously victim patterns. And so one thing that I like to do is consciously complain. And I'll just let this victim part of me for 30 seconds, just have the mic and ham it up and just have fun with it so it comes up and out. And then it moves on. Then it's like not such a big deal.
So you would journal that out or something?
Journal or talk it out. I'll ham it up with my husband even. So, you know, when I sometimes want to blame him, I'll ask him, can you hold? And if he's resourced, he'll say yes. You always want to have a part of you or another person, somebody or something in the dynamic that is present, that is resourced. Otherwise, it's just going to be, it's not going to be healing or helpful. And so I'll ask him, are you resourced? And then I'll just ham this part of me up. I'll be like, you are the worst human ever. And I'll just start bashing, and he knows it's not personal. And because I'm hamming it up, it's lighter and we start laughing and then it moves through. So like all these parts of us just want to be seen, just want to be allowed. And if we can create a space to allow them, then they don't unconsciously play out in our lives, in our businesses, in our relationships, in our creativity. They just are then integrated and we're more aware of them. So sometimes asking powerful questions can help us become more aware of the patterns that are playing out. And then other times they can help highlight an upper limit, or we can do self-inquiry. So there's lots of different ways to use it depending on what the intention is.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. It is so important to dive deep into your subconscious because in there is stored all of the gems, all of the ways that you show up in the world, the reasons why you make decisions the way that you do, the reasons why you attract relationships the ways that you do. All of those limiting beliefs are stored in our subconscious. And it's really until we do therapy and different healing modalities that we're able to dive into it and stop repeating these patterns that are holding us back. So I highly recommend everyone work with a therapist. And this is why I love BetterHelp, because they're making it really accessible to everyone. So with BetterHelp, you can try different therapists. They're all online. You can even talk to them through their app. You can do it like during your lunch break. They're quick 30-minute sessions. So you can really kind of discuss what's on your heart rather than numb it out or go on social media. And it's just so beneficial. It's very affordable and accessible to really anyone. So if you even have a family member or someone that you feel like could benefit from therapy, BetterHelp is a really good way for them to start practicing that. So you can head over to betterhelp.com/Sahara to actually get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Sahara. You can find that link in the show notes. And I'm super excited for a world with better mental health. So as you were saying this and starting with the Enneagram, I was thinking, okay, what are some questions I could ask myself about being a 7, And I'm like, well, I guess I could ask myself, because post this divorce, I've just been traveling, which is a pretty 7 thing to do. So I'm like, okay, why have I been traveling? So can you do this on me? I'll be vulnerable and we can dive into it.
Sure. So what is the intention of it though? For what would the intention
I want to
be?
see this in practice, this questioning of beliefs. And we could start with the Enneagram and see where it takes us.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be a goal or an intention that you have that you don't have at the moment?
I feel like right now I feel pretty ungrounded. I feel like in this like in between of my life that like the former life has ended, but the new life, I don't even know where I'm going to live. Like I don't even know who I am really in this. I'm just in this in between that it's like all slowly starting to piece together. And the part of me that's the 3 is like, okay, sign a lease, get back to work. Like, let's get back into it. Let's go. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go back to that version of me. Like, I feel like the 3 was like really not me. It's like, I just became that for society, for, success, because of my conditioning. A huge part of it was that. So I'm like, I don't want to go back to being a 3. But also this could go on forever, And then part of me is like, well, maybe I'm just meant to be like a traveler forever and just a traveling mystic. But then I'm like, is that me running from something? So I'm just like really sitting with all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what would be the end goal though? What would be your intention?
To know if I should sign a lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hear there's this part of you that is kind of conformed to achieve, to hustle, or to really show up with work.
Yes.
And it feels inauthentic. And then there's another part of you that is kind of like ready to travel and play, but you're also wanting stability.
Yes. And I think the 3 part of me judges the 7 part of me.
So what does the 3 want for you? How is it trying to support and serve you by judging the 7?
It's saying, well, our hard work got us to where we are, got us to the point that we even can travel. So don't fuck that up.
And is that valuable for you, Sahara?
I mean, part of that is true.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. And then the 7, if we give voice to the 7, what does the 7 want?
This is a once in a lifetime experience that you have to travel, that your stuff is in storage, and this is a year that you can create anything you want. Do you really just want to go back to living in an apartment and doing the same shit you've always been doing?
And so this 7, what does this part of you really want for you? It wants freedom.
Full expansion.
Full expansion. Yeah. And so I hear that these 2 parts don't think that they can coexist, that you can have the success and the expansion and freedom. And is that true?
No, because I've always had those 2 parts of me. But now it's just a much more extreme version, because before it's like I had a home to go back to. Now I just live out of a suitcase, which does feel very ungrounding, because there are a lot of things that I can't, even just like practicing my DJing or painting or like all of these like hobbies that I had before. I just can't when you're like moving places every few days.
Yeah.
So like that 3 part of me is also like, to build in your creativity, you need to have some form of foundation.
Yeah. And what does the 7 say in response to that?
The 7 is like, you'll figure it out. Like you can just go travel and DJ, and you don't need to be in an apartment to do that.
And because it wants that, like it doesn't want any commitments.
Exactly. And it's wondering what else is out there.
Yeah. So if you close your eyes and you just breathe into your body and just feel these 2 parts, and you just welcome whatever got activated through this dialogue between the 3 and the 7.
Makes you want to laugh.
What comes forward for you?
I mean, I'm like, dude, I fuck with the 7. I like her.
Yeah. That feels more of your aliveness, more of your authenticity. Yeah. And so when you tune in with the smiles, what feels like what she wants to do?
I mean, I feel the 7 it feels like a highest self energy of like, you don't need those things that you've been conditioned to make you feel safe. Like maybe you needed them up to this point, but you actually don't need those things. So it feels like it's like challenging me to just like really be in the unknown for however long that it takes. But then like instantly the 3 comes up of like, well, you can be in the unknown while having a base. It doesn't need to be this extreme to be in the unknown. Yeah. So it's like the 3 instantly comes up, because also I love my work. and I love what I do. Like, I love being back in LA because I can be here recording with you and catching up with friends. And like, I also find it's like almost like wherever I go, I'm like, I'm going to live here forever. I'm like in Bali, I'm going to live here forever. I'm in Egypt. I think I'm just going to move to Egypt. So it's like, it's almost like you can't go wrong. And at the same time, my 7 is like, well, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you just even close your eyes and tune into that part of you that is like, I want stability, that 3 part, see where it's activated in your body.
Yeah. It's like a more grounded energy, deeper, but like a little boring, denser.
Okay. So let's thank
my adult self.
Yeah. Okay. Let's thank this part of you that wants security. It wants growth. It wants groundedness, because I know you want that as well. So just thanking this part for trying to protect you, for doing what it can to get your attention, and just honoring it. I hear you, and we won't make decisions without you. Letting that part know that it has a voice here at the table.
Yeah, because instantly it's like, so are we signing the lease or not?
And we're going to get to the strategy. We'll get to the answer. Yeah. But we just get to take a moment in your body to pause and really feel into that, to say, thank you. I don't need to judge you. And I hear the wisdom that you have for me. You want groundedness, you want stability. But the 7, I also hear judges it as boring. And I would question that it's boring. But what I just want to honor and thank this part, the 3 first. Okay.
It's my divine masculine, feels like.
Yeah. And we need all of it. There's wisdom in all of it. And we're not judging it. We can hear what that wisdom is. So we're hearing that this part of you wants your expansion. It wants your growth. It wants stability. Yeah. And then the 7, which you feel more identified with, which is more playful and freedom and exploration and just letting go and the unknown, which is so beautiful about you, Sahara. It's like your willingness to just fall into the unknown and just find your way and to experience all of life. So this part, the 7, how it is in conflict is it's saying that it's boring. The 3 is boring, right? So as you tune in,
it feels not boring. It feels limiting of my full expression and potential. And like right now, the sky is the limit. Do I really want to put a cap on it based off of my former identity?
Mm-hmm. And so what's important to you around this part? I want to give this part a little bit more voice.
Whoever I become in this next year is like what I'm going to write my book about. And it's like, I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, I traveled for like 3 months and then like went back to my life. I'm like, I want this to be my eat, pray, love moment, and like live it up. And like, when am I ever maybe going to get another opportunity like this that I literally don't have any responsibilities?
Yeah.
And I don't want to limit. It all comes down to like that limitation piece. However, being in that experience now of traveling for the past 2.5 months, it's also not what it's all. It also comes with the stress, and it comes with a lot of like, every time I'm feeling anxious, I'm just go back to looking at apartment leases and like feeling like, oh, that's going to get me out of this feeling of like, I'm free falling. And when is this going to end?
Okay. So are you open to presencing that? Mm-hmm. Are you open to, I know you and I have talked about freedom to versus freedom from. So freedom from is that escapism, is that leaving to book another flight and to like find the next thing, versus freedom to be with that anxiety, be with the part that feels stuck in service to your expansion.
And even the freedom from the unknown is what makes me want to sign a lease of like, get me out of this not knowing. I need some certainty in my life.
Yeah. And so both, yes, and as we do this work, it starts to be more clear what your authentic yes is by letting go of the fears on both sides. So, and I hear you are leaning towards the 7, and I will reflect that and support that always. And there are ways that you can integrate what's important to the 3. So, or you can be with the part that gets anxious and wants stability so that you insource stability and safety rather than outsourcing it as you live your vagabond life and travel and play. So, but even right now, is there any part of you, like if I were to say, you're going to be stuck in this place, this room for the next 7 months, is there any part of you that contracts in your body right now?
Like getting an apartment and like, I can't travel anymore?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Where's that in your...
No, That's not even a possibility for me.
Yes.
That's not. It's just.
I know, but I'm going to the extreme to activate the energy in your body.
No,
You're like, hell no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Yes. And where do you notice it in your body? That like, that contraction, that fear?
In my heart.
Okay. So if we just close our eyes to go into your heart and let go of the story, but just to be with that contraction and to say yes to this intimately right now, breathing into it. The sensation of feeling stuck, the sensation of feeling trapped. Are you willing to feel that fully? Not as a story, as a sensation, dropping into it, breathing into the sensation of stuck or trapped.
Yeah, it brings up a feeling of dread.
Yeah. And then be with that feeling of dread just for a few seconds, just saying yes to it, really getting intimate with this experience, what's coming up for you right now.
It took me back to this like apartment that I once visited, and it was like this tiny apartment with like no view above this like convenience store. And I remember thinking like, who the fuck would ever want to live here? Like, oh my God, I would hate living here. And it took me to that apartment and it's like, you're stuck here.
This is the worst ever. Yeah. So be there in your mind, but then just be with the energy of stuck.
Yeah. It feels like I'm trying to escape from it.
Yeah. And if we shift the perspective to welcome, your essence welcomes this energy. This is part of the one, all of it divine. And just breathing into it, opening your awareness even around your body. So it's not limited to a sense of self.
Yeah. Like my mind goes to, okay, well, you're in jail, so make the best of it.
So just watch the tendency to go to the mind and then come back to the body, come back to the sensation and just breathe, feeling into it.
Yeah, my breath feels like limited in this stuck expression.
And feel open to that. Are you willing to be with this fully, just for a moment and see what happens?
I can feel the energy like move up now to my throat.
So letting it do whatever it wants to do, no agenda, while you're feeling and allowing this energy to move through however it wants. And you're also opening your awareness to allow it to move through the body and around the body, whatever it needs and wants to do. There's intelligence in it. Just with the breath, pure sensation out of the mind, into the body, breathing, opening.
Yeah, it kind of just gets to this feeling of like you're wearing really constricted clothes. You can't move your arms, and you just kind of surrender.
Yeah. And what's that surrender feel like?
Acceptance.
What else? Does it feel heavier or lighter?
It feels like making the best out of it. Feels definitely less chaotic than the escape energy.
Yeah. And so
complacency even.
Yeah, it sounds like complacency, which means that there's a deeper opportunity to be with it, like as if this was never going to leave. If this were your reality.
It feels like this was my former reality.
Yes. And oftentimes when we thought something was bad from the past, we have fear of projecting it into the future.
Yeah.
So we go back to say, how can I really be with that look again? Was I really trapped, or was it in my mind that I was trapped about that situation? Was I okay other than what I was thinking and believing in that apartment?
Yes.
And so on a somatic level, just tuning in to this energy even a little bit deeper, as if it's never going to leave, to just breathe into welcoming it here, infinite space to be exactly as it is, not even a you feeling it, just allowed and felt right now. And just notice there's something in your experience, your present experience, that doesn't mind that this is here. Are you aware of that?
It feels like maybe a monk energy. Just be alone, meditate in your cave.
But is there something in your direct experience right now that is at peace?
When I see it that way, of this would be my sadhana, then that gives me peace, because then it feels like I'm no longer trapped, but I'm taking it as an opportunity to be by myself in isolation, to dive deeper into myself. And then that makes it feel like an adventure.
So there's like a subtle way that the ego will use it to get out of it. And that's okay. And so the invitation,
my mind's like, how can we make this into
which is brilliant. It's so beautiful
yeah.
that it's like, yes, I'm going to use everything. That's great. And yet if we just genuinely die to this sensation, to this moment, exactly as it was, without trying to manipulate or change it. Can I be free enough to feel this fully?
The image that came up was like, when you put on an outfit on your dog and the dog really doesn't want to wear the outfit and then they put it on and they're just kind of stuck. Like, it's just like, okay, I have the awkward outfit on. I'm just going to stand here now.
Okay. So just notice the walls in the room right now.
Okay.
Notice the walls and notice this energy that feels stuck. You can even close your eyes if you want. So feel do the walls mind that this energy is stuck?
No, they're the ones making it stuck.
Okay. So they don't mind that it's here. So if you fully get into relationship with not minding that it's here in an authentic and genuine way, whatever part of your experience doesn't mind, see if you can align with that.
Yeah, I don't think the walls have a perception of stuck. They just are. They've never experienced another reality.
Yeah. So exactly. So the only way to create the illusion of being stuck is through time, is through comparison.
Yes.
And so if we cut time and we're just with what is, breathing into the sensations, allowing all of it to be here, notice what that's like.
Just feels like I'm in this room for eternity.
So just right now, without even time, just fully being here with exactly what's here, breathing into it, just allowing. And so there may be deeper levels of meeting this stuck energy without trying to avoid or get out of it. And from that, there are going to be moments, Sahara, where you're stuck and you're not really stuck. As you have a practice of being, ironically, with this stuck energy and fully meeting it exactly as it is, it no longer has control over you. You don't have to run away from it in any subtle way. And then whether you're in an apartment, you sign a lease, or you don't, you have this sense of inner freedom no matter what.
I think the time piece is huge because when I look back on myself in the marriage, living in an apartment, the part of me right now is like, oh, you were stuck. But that part of me then did not think she was stuck at all. It's me being like, oh no, you didn't know what's available for you. You could have been traveling. You could have been this. You could have been that. But it's like, but she was actually happy. So it's not letting us like go. I think sometimes when we have like deeper awarenesses or different awarenesses, then we go back to judging those old versions of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's wisdom in all of it. So there's a part of you that wants stability and there's a part of you that wants greater, fuller expression and freedom. And yes, both and you can have both. And part of the way is, at least in a deep way, to feel free enough to feel stuck, to actually feel stuck. And as you do that, it no longer makes choices to run away from subtly any feelings of confinement.
So my meditation practice should just be feeling stuck.
With presence, with resource.
Okay.
With presence, with resource, I can consciously feel stuck. And some of these ones that are core, especially the Enneagram core wound, it's like either life will provide an opportunity to actually be with it, or we can proactively, like an iceberg, keep chipping away until it dissolves.
This is huge for me. Wow, that's my core wound, feeling stuck. Mm-hmm. I never realized that before this.
A lot of sevens are entrepreneurs. They're looking for the next thing. And really the joy is in your being. Is in the presence of your being. It's in a deeper dimension of your being. The real success is in a deeper dimension of our being. And so it's not out there, it's going deeper. And again, going through the things that we wouldn't normally think to look.
Right.
Can I be with this, whatever it is? And then, yes, we stretch the range to feel our human experience. And we authentically move in the world to say, okay, I'll get an apartment, but it doesn't have, or I won't. I want to travel a bit more. But it doesn't have so much weight on it because it doesn't mean anything. And yet when the parts, if you don't choose to have an apartment, if the 3 gets activated, you can just say, thank you for looking for my safety. And then you offer it the safety. Or the stability, right? So rather than looking for the apartment to give it or the partner to give it or finances, we offer that to ourselves and we feel an inherent safety that no one can take away because it's within our being. It's within the dimension of who and what we are.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful process. And I witnessed how my mind kept wanting to reframe it. And even right now, when you said for sevens, this is a big thing. And my mind went to, okay, so maybe I should do Vipassana. And like, maybe I should go to the Himalayas. And it wants to do strategy. A thing to embody.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I do it too all the time.
Yeah.
It's like strategizing so that then I don't feel this.
I'm like, okay, Bhutan, booking flights. Yeah.
Right. And then so it's great because your awareness, you're super quick. So then it's like, oh, I'm strategizing so I don't feel this again. And sometimes we can do personal development work as a way to avoid feeling our humanity or a waking up, enlightenment. So I don't feel my humanity. It's like what shifts is like these feelings and thoughts and all of it still comes, but it's no longer to a someone. It's just happening. It's just arising in the moment.
Yeah. And it's almost like that thing that you really don't want to feel, like being stuck. I created my entire life so I never have to feel stuck. I became an entrepreneur. I, try to keep a really like lean team and just things so I can just go and do and create. So I can't even relate to someone being like, I'm creatively blocked. I'm like, well, just do something, But it is, my work is in that, like, who am I without creating and seeing things and inspiring and movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful. That's part of your gift as well. So I want to make sure that we look at it holistically. Mm-hmm. So part of your gift is creativity and expression and adventure and being willing to try different things on in life. But it's when we're subtly avoiding something that there's opportunity for greater freedom. And as we do that deeper work at the root, we align with activities and opportunities that feel more easy. And it doesn't feel like I have to make a choice. Without the fear, it just happens. And things are more synchronistic.
So I feel a lot of us have this thought that, well, if I accept it, then I'm complacent to it. And even for me, when that came up, I felt like the dog who's like, okay, I guess I'm just stuck. Like nothing I can do. So how is acceptance different than complacency?
Yeah. I mean, acceptance is not arguing with what's happened. So it's like, it's insane to think that if I judge this, whatever this is that has already happened, then I'm going to have it change. But I call it surrendered action. We can be proactive, high engagement, low attachment, because it's only the attachment that hurts. I'm not saying that things shouldn't or shouldn't happen. I don't pretend to know that. But I do know that whatever does happen, I can use and get in alignment with. Because if I ordered a pink couch and a blue couch came, me judging that it should have been a pink couch doesn't actually help the situation. So I don't use my energy by judging or pushing it away. I come into alignment. And if I don't, then I have the tools to let my egoic self that wants to complain or have its tantrum, let that consciously express so that I can come into an alignment with what is. And then from there, use my energy towards creating what's true and alive for me.
Yeah, I feel like we often think, well, if I accept this thing, that means it's going to be like this forever, or that means I deserved it, So like, for example, let's say, I don't know, a friend of yours said something rude to you and you're like, well, that's not okay. Like what she said was not okay. And I did not deserve to be spoken to in that way. Yeah. How can we now come into a place of acceptance when maybe they did speak to us in a way that was not what we desired or deserved?
Yeah, because that still comes from acceptance is complacent. Mm-hmm. So we can say they spoke to me that way and I'm choosing not to have them in my life anymore. I can still have boundaries and do what feels good for me. I can also choose to get a divorce and be pissed off or at peace because of the inner work that I did. The action is the same. The inner work is my gift to myself, my consciousness, my freedom. So, and if it's not authentic, then let ourselves grieve or have a tantrum or do our work. So, I mean, this is all a choice. We can choose one way of not doing the work and we can choose the other way, which is doing the work so that we can come to a place of peace and still choose to leave the marriage or still choose to set boundaries and not hang out with that person or have them in our lives.
Yeah, that has been so huge for me too, because, having just gotten divorced, it's like I started reading different books and I could really feel the energy of the author. And some are just like these like angry books, of like, never have this happen to you again and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I don't want to feel that way. Like, no. I don't want to hold on to regret or anything because it was also amazing. And it's what made me who I am today. And I want to always look back on those years with like happy memories and remembering all of the good. Because it's like, you would never be with someone if you didn't also love them and see the light in them. And that's what I want to hold on to.
That's right. And that's such a gift. I mean, I think that that's one of the gifts of you doing this work and being so vocal about it and just so out, because the people can see that there's a different way than what mainstream society teaches us, that we can keep our heart open. And even if we're keeping our heart open to our closed heart, that when we keep our heart open, that's a gift to us. When we forgive, that's a gift to us.
Yes.
It's not about
It doesn't
them.
make what they did right or acceptable. Right. It's just, I'm not going to hold on to it anymore.
And hurt myself. That's right. Yeah.
So I want to talk about this word deserve.
Yeah.
I didn't deserve that. How is this word really holding us back?
This idea that, this comes from this right-wrong dynamic. Like, this is what should happen and this is what shouldn't. And then also, anytime we deserve something, there's going to be a different environment where we don't deserve it. And it just pendulums with this made-up understanding of who we think we are and what we think we deserve. I think it's limiting.
Love that. If you feel like you deserve something, that means you feel like you don't. You have to have both then.
Yeah. And I think people unintentionally use this, like, you deserve that or you deserve this. But if it has anything to do with our deservability, then we're going to try to earn our worth. We're going to try to prove something, and that's just inauthentic. And so it's like, you didn't deserve that. Well, I understand the deeper intention, but I think the words are important. And so realizing we are all inherently whole, all inherently worthy. From there, then it's not about deserving or not deserving. It's about being willing to say, this is what was presented to me in life, and what can I use it to teach me? What is life showing me or assisting me to see through this? Because then we have an empowered point of view rather than thinking, I'm trying to manipulate life, or it's their problem or their fault, pointing fingers outside. The real work is the inside. So again, I just flip the frame, because this idea that you deserve it is too limiting. The truth of who you are, there's no definition the mind could put on us that would capture who we really are. Actually, to go further into this, it's like, there was a part of my life, there was so much of my life where I thought I wasn't good enough. And it was a paralyzing, gripping thought that every time something happened that it didn't go the way I thought it should, it was like, well, I'm not successful enough, or I'm not this enough. And it was my mind finding evidence for how that was true, right? The mind's not that intelligent. You tell it a story and it'll find all the evidence for why it's true. You flip it, it does the opposite. So I started looking at this, and when I would actually not feel deserving, that's when I started realizing the paradox of transformation. When I would feel not deserving as a sensation and embrace it, it opened me to my wholeness. And that's when I was like, oh, there's gems in here. But also what happened was I went from not good enough to I'm beyond any story. It was like more of a spiritual awakening. And that's beautiful. But I also realized I needed to comb through the I deserve this conversation too, the ego conversation of feeling like I do deserve this, so I could let things in a very healthy, integrated ego. But ultimately, I think most people hang there and they don't really question who is it that they think they are and what do they think they are deserving. And really then, if they believe that, they're a victim to life. And if you think that you're a victim, you're literally in a room, locking the key, throwing it away. It's like this idea of deserving or don't deserve is made up. And there's later times in our lives where we look back and we're like, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It was hard, and I learned so much for it, and I'm grateful for the gifts.
When you meditate on that energy of not deserving, I feel like a lot of us who've studied manifestation, then we have this fear of like, well, if I'm consciously feeling that, then aren't I going to manifest? And I feel like that was even blocking me from not wanting to really just like feel the stuck, because I didn't want to manifest that.
I've been there. Yes. And my experience is that the fear is a lower vibrational state. And so it's not like you're going to call it in. It's actually my experience of manifestation is that as we do the core work, as we do shadow work and really move through it, we drop in the image of what we want to experience from the field of pure potential, from that meditative state of like, it's not even a state, it's beyond states, but we drop it into the field and it instantly happens. It's so much more accelerated because we've cleared away the fears and the subconscious misunderstandings. If we don't feel like we deserve something, we're not going to manifest it or maintain it. And so a lot of the work that I do is around worth, because I don't feel worthy. I do feel worthy. I'm beyond any story of worth, right? So every level is helpful, but you are going to experience more freedom by the willingness to go to the depths of whatever, not in a story state, again, as a sensation, go to the depths of what you're afraid of and be with it. as long as it's within the window of tolerance, and this is for healthy integrated egos, not people that have had any big T trauma, I would say make sure to do that with a therapist. And there's different parts of our journey that because this is some core heavy, deep work. It's only heavy in the mind, not in the body. It's actually really instant and powerful if we're willing to surrender to it somatically. There's no fear in it. Ironically, if we're willing to face it, we get free. And from that field of no fear, we manifest way more. It's more accelerated.
Because that emotion is there regardless. It's not like, oh, if I don't feel it, it's going to go away. It's like, it's there. So you might as well fully feel it so it can dissolve.
That's right. Yeah. And integrate. And then you don't have to keep projecting it into the future. It's like that. It's almost like sometimes we don't know we have a story until it's gone. It's like the refrigerator hum. It's just always there and it stops. We're like, oh, it was a whole other reality. And so that hum is also at some level manifesting, right? And so why not have the courage to just test it and experiment for one time and see what happens when we're willing to go there?
And this is why questioning our beliefs helps us get ahead of these situations, because then you start to notice that little hum through inquiry, that you don't need to have these big breakdowns and explosions in life to realize that they were there all along.
Yeah. And love moves towards everything. Your nature is loving. It's like it moves towards everything. The ego, essence just embraces all of it. And when we're not identified in fear states, it's a lot easier just to say, can I be with this? And say yes to whatever the moment is presenting. Thoughts, emotions, relational patterns. It's all a gift helping us evolve.
So let's say, for example, you were, applying for being on a show and you didn't get chosen. So the feeling came up of, I'm not deserving. I'm not good enough. Yeah. How would you alchemize that?
I would stop to get curious, where is it in my body? I would bring my awareness down into that activation. So there's a way that you can go in your mind and look down versus drop back and in to, it's oftentimes in your throat, your heart, and your gut, the core stuff. So drop into it with presence, open to feeling it, allowing it to be here. And as you do, just like you did with the tension in your shoulder, that energy was more neutral, so it moved through. Whereas earlier with the fear of being stuck, that has got more charge that's more important to you. So it was less neutral. But I would just be with that energy as a sensation for 90 seconds and it starts to clear every single time. And we know that if we keep ruminating on it or it keeps cycling, that means we're thinking a thought that is creating the existence of it. So if it doesn't move in 90 seconds, then we're in an image or we're in a story about it rather than feeling the direct experience of it.
So you just feel it, and do you try to get to like, where did this come from? Or what is this telling me? Or you just feel without any mind?
I do both. If it feels emotionally charged, then sometimes I'll give it a voice. I'll give it expression. And any expression can be dance, yelling, it can be sound, it can be words, it can be journaling. And then I will bring presence to it where literally essence is embracing ego. And then other times it feels just more somatic. And some people, somatic work works great for, because people that specifically know a lot about themselves but haven't changed, somatic work is great because it's this backdoor in. It's on the nervous system level rather than the intellectual level. Other times people just love somatic work. It works well for them, but some people it doesn't. So we want to really develop our range and understand how we're wired. 4s in the Enneagram can really, a tendency is to wallow in the past, feel regret. But because they are so fiercely willing to go to the depths, sometimes they can get stuck there. And so learning mindset work for that type of individual helps them understand what was the thought that created this emotion, helps them balance and then feel more present and productive moving forward on creating whatever they want to create in the world.
I love that so much, because when we're feeling that thing, it's so easy to then, for me, to get into the mind of like, where did it come from and who are you and and just to like feel it and just know in 90 seconds it will move. And you don't need to get to the bottom of like its root thing right now. And, and then there are other things that I love to do of like, taking it out. What color and texture is it? And sometimes that helps you like not identify with it anymore as you, but like to see it from the outside perspective of like, oh, it's this like boogery mucus thing. It's this energy of like disgust. And like, that's not me. And then to be able to like watch it transform into something else and even like turn into another shape and put it back into your body. It's just like really amazing practices to be able to, like somatically engage with these things that we're holding on to.
And a lot of the work in the somatic world is that it arises, it shows us. So if we have this kind of top-down approach where like, this is the tool with 7 steps, that's good for a moment and for some time, when we're learning and things. But with the somatic world, there's no roadmap. The life is intelligent. The body knows. And so as you create an environment for healing and transformation, it will arise. So there may be a memory that arises and you follow that. There may be a story that is highlighted and you can question that. But I like having an integrative method and framework so that people can be met in different ways, understanding that we're all wired differently. We all need something different in different moments. So working it mentally, emotionally, somatically, behaviorally, and unconsciously, that is part of the work that helps us feel more ourselves, feels like, and so sometimes things are going to require you to understand, where did it come from? And oftentimes it's our childhood, right? So, but not always. Sometimes there was a misunderstanding that's more helpful to clear now, finding our power, finding our voice in a situation we felt powerless through. But no matter what, you will always come back to allowing the energy to just fully express and meeting it with compassion and love. And then from there, you take action in a way that's way more aligned rather than trying to, sometimes people try to strategize from division and fear, and it's never going to be helpful if you do that. It's like the willingness to do the inner work first and then the outer work is going to be so much more sustainable and easy because we're not trying to prove ourselves or avoid feeling something through the end goal.
And before we leave, there's something that you shared with me years ago, and it's always stuck with me. And it's like the path of awakening of going like upwards, downwards, and through. Can you share this?
I love it. I find that with awakening spirituality, it's like having frameworks is really helpful to orient. So there's this beautiful man named Locke Kelly. He talks about there's waking up. So waking up, it's like, I'm not just this body mind. Waking down, well, I have a body mind, but I'm more than a body mind. And then waking out, and which is really awakened living with a really free and open heart and mind.
And you see this happen so much, sometimes I go back to looking at like old pictures I would screenshot, and like the things I would screenshot like 10 years ago were like, you can astral project to different places and like, we don't exist and we're timeline jumping and like all of those. That was like my entry point into this kind of more of like, it was more new age, I would say. And then, now it's much more about embodiment and pleasure and earth. But then also it's like, and we're none of it. Yeah. We're everything and we're nothing.
It's the paradox.
And then like sometimes I'm just like, I don't even exist. And then you can dance in all the realms and go back to them and be like, oh yeah, like you don't have the judgment of this is the path. No, that is the path. And then they're like battling against each other. And it's like they're all taking us to the same place.
That's right. They all lead the same place. And I think there's different medicine on our journeys at different times. So as we follow what is true and alive for us, it will lead us to what's meant for us in that moment to really get. And we have to be willing to let go of everything we've learned to stay true to what is this moment teaching me and what can I learn from this? But I love that frame and I love you. And I love this like continuous expression and unfolding of the beauty of who you are. It's been such a gift to have you in my life. And I honor
likewise, I loved diving into all of these different topics with you. There's just so much that we can discuss, and you're just such a breadth of knowledge and information, but also like so lovely in the way that you present it and make it so relatable. So where can listeners connect with you further?
Yeah, they can go to alyssanobriga.com or follow me on Instagram.
And we'll have that link in the show notes. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, please leave a review for it in the iTunes store, and I will send you a free gift of my womb meditation. So this is a little 7-minute meditation you can do to connect to your womb's wisdom. And it really helps you get the answers that you are seeking from within your body. So you can head over to the iTunes store, leave a review, take a screenshot before hitting submit, and email it over to me at Sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. And You can find that link in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Namaste.